We continue now at the top of Daf Beis Amud Aleph and Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf Tube. This is the beginning of Meseches Bava Metzia. The Mishnah says, Shnayim ochazin betalis, if two people are grabbing onto a talis, Zeh Omar Ani Metziah, Zeh Omar Ani Metziah. This one says, I found it, and this one says, I found it. Zeh Omar Kula Shali, this one says, the entire thing is mine. Zeh Omar Kula Shali, and this one says, the entire thing is mine. Zeh Yishava She'ein Lo Ba Pachos Michetzia. This one should swear that he doesn't own less than half. Zeh Yishava She'ein Lo Ba Pachos Michetzia, and the other one should also take a shvua. He should also swear that he doesn't own less than half. V'yachlok, and the halacha then is that they divide it. Zeh Omer Kula Shali, this one says the entire thing is mine. V'zeh Omer Chetzia Shali, and the other one says half of it is mine. HaOmer Kula Shali Yishava She'ein Lo Ba Pachos Mishlosha Chalakim. The one who says the entire thing is mine, he should take a shvua that he doesn't have less than 3 portions. It means to say 3/4 of the talis. V'Omer Chetzia Shali, and the one who says that half of it is mine, Yishava, he should take an oath She'ein Lo Ba Pachos Miravia, that he doesn't have less than 1/4. Zeh Notel Shlosha Chalakim, and then this one will take 3/4. V'zeh Notel Ravia, and the other one will take 1/4. And the Mishnah continues, if two people are riding on an animal, or one is riding on the animal and one is leading the animal, this one says the entire thing is mine, and this one says the entire thing is mine. This one should swear that he doesn't have less than half, and the other one should also swear that he doesn't have less than half, and they divide it. Bizman shehem modim, in a situation where they admit, or let's say there are witnesses, so then cholkin below shvua, so then they divide it without a shvua. And Rashi explains, Shnayim ochazin betalis, two people are holding a talis, dafka ochazin, it's specifically when they're holding it. The Shnayim muchzakim, but the idea is that they're both muchzak, they both have possession of it. Ve'ein lazek koach bayoser mizan, this one doesn't have more power over it than the other one. She'ilu haisa bi'arechad levado, because if it was only in the possession of one of them, have'ida chamotzi mechaver, the other person would be considered one who is being motzi from his fellow, trying to take away something from his fellow. Ve'olav lahaviraya be'edim she'ishalo, and then he didn't need to bring evidence with witnesses that it's his. Ve'eno this person would not be believed to take it with an oath in such a situation. This one says again, I found it, and this one says it's all mine, it's all mine. The Gemara will explain why it says two different phrases that seem to mean the same thing. The Gemara will explain what the purpose of taking this shvua is for. He has to swear that he doesn't have less than half of it. The Gemara will explain why this is the specific language of the oath. Then the next case of the Mishnah was, this one says it's all mine and this one says half of it is mine. The point here is he's admitting that half of it belongs to his friend. They're only having a court case about half of it. Therefore the one who says it's all mine, he should swear, meaning exactly like we said in the first case. Whatever it is that they're judging about, they swear over and they split that portion. That within that part they're arguing about is not less than half, and each one takes half, so that's why the part they admit belongs to one of them, he takes that entire half. They're only arguing about the other half, that's why it divides up to be 3/4 and 1/4. It's coming to teach us that if you have a person riding or a person leading, they're exactly equal in terms of acquiring an animal from hefker. Let's say the animal is ownerless. And finally the last line of the Mishnah was, if they admit or they have edim, they divide without a shvua. And Rashi says on that, the Gemara will explain this line, that this line is actually teaching us that if somebody picks up a lost object for his friend, then his friend can acquire it. And the Gemara says, why does the Mishnah have to have two phrases? This one says I found it, and this one says I found it. This one says it's all mine, and this one says it's all mine. We should just have one line over there in the Mishnah. And the Gemara answers, it is all one line. This one says I found it, and it's all mine. And this one says I found it, and it's all mine. But still the Gemara asks, let's just have in the Mishnah that it says I found it. I know obviously he means to say it's all mine. And the Gemara says to that, Itana ani mitzasiyah, if it only said ani mitzasiyah, hava amina mai mitzasiyah risi. I would have thought, what does the word mitzasiyah mean? It means that I saw it. He's essentially saying, I saw it first. Afal gavdelo asay liyadein, even though it never came into his hand, b'ri'iyah ba'al makani, he's saying that he acquires it just by seeing it. That's what you would have thought. So Tana Kula Shali, that's why the Mishnah says Kula Shali, Deviriya Lo Kani, to tell us that seeing alone is not a kinyan. The Gemara says, Umi Motzes Amrit Mai Mitzasiyah Risiya, could you even say that the word Mitzasiyah means I saw it? Ve'amar Rav Noi, but Rav Noi said, Umitzasa, that when it says in the Pasuk Umitzasa, Da'asoi Liyadei Mashma, it implies that it actually came into his hand. So it doesn't mean to say you saw it, it means to say it's in your possession. And the Gemara answers to that, in yes, Umitzasa Dekra Da'asa Liyadei Mashma. When it says the word Umitzasa in the Pasuk, that it means to say that it comes into his possession, it comes into his hands. Umiyu Tana Lishna Dialmanaka. Nevertheless, the Tana of the Mishnah chooses the normal language, the way people speak. Umidachazi Lane, when somebody sees something, Amar Ano Ashkochas, he says, I found it. V'yafagav Delo Asoi Liyadi, and even though it didn't come into his hand, B'riya Ba'al Makani, you would think that it means that with seeing it alone, he is Kona. And so therefore, Tani Kula Shali, that's why it says in the Mishnah the phrase Kula Shali, Devriya B'al Malo Kani La, to say that you are not able to acquire something by seeing it alone. But the Gemara continues, Velisni Kula Shali. Why not just have in the Mishnah the phrase of Kula Shali? Velo boy, ani mitzasi. You don't have to say I found it. Just say it's all mine. And the Gemara says, Itani Kula Shali. No, if it said Kula Shali in the Mishnah, Havamina, that I would have thought, Bi Alma de Katani Mitzasiya, that in other situations where we see the word Mitzasiya, Bariya Ba'al Makani, it means that seeing alone is a kinyan. So therefore, Tana Ani Mitzasiya, therefore our Mishnah taught the phrase of Ani Mitzasiya, Vahadar Tana Kula Shali, and then had the phrase of Kula Shali, to be Mishnah Yisera, that from that extra phrase, Ashmina, it teaches us the Re'iyah Lo Kani, that in general, Re'iyah is not going to be Kona. But the Gemara says, but could you really say that it's all one case in the Mishnah? Everything we've said up till now is presuming that this is really all one case. But it says it sounds like two separate cases. So it sounds like we are talking about two separate cases. And so the Gemara says, Papa says, V'tamer of Shimi Barashi. Some say it's Rav Shimi Barashi that says V'amri Lakadi, and some say it's unattributed, but they say as follows: Reisha b'Metziah, the first part of the Mishnah is talking about a Metziah, is talking about something that was found, a lost object, V'seifa, but then the end of the Mishnah, the next case of the Mishnah, is B'mekach u'memkar, is actually talking about a case of a purchase, and the Gemara says Utzricha, and it's necessary. And Rashi explains, V'amar Rav Noi b'Bava Kama b'Hagozel u'machel. Rav Noi says in Bava Kama, in Perak Hagozel u'machel u'mitzasa, when it says in the Pasuk u'mitzasa, that's talking about finding lost objects, being obligated to return it, Hashavas Aveda, da'asa liyadei mashma, that implies that it actually came into the person's possession, that object that he found that he has to return. The point over there is, Va'afilu hachi achicha v'lo ovid kol chavim, nevertheless, even though the person actually found it, it came into his possession, he only has to return it to your brother, only to a fellow Jew, not to a non-Jew. V'lo tema, don't say, ki miyet rachmana ovid kol chavim, that when is a non-Jew excluded, heicha delo asay liyadei d'Yisrael, maybe that's only when it didn't come into the possession of the Jew, then lo mechayiv, l'mitrachalo ladur, he doesn't have to bother with it and return it. Maybe you would think that if it comes into his possession, he does have to return it to the non-Jew. Maybe you would think that his aveda, the lost object of a non-Jew, is going to be prohibited to keep, but that is not the case. Umitzasa means da'asa liyadei, meaning to say it only applies even when it comes into the Jew's possession. This mitzvah of Hashavas aveda only applies to returning it to Jews and not to non-Jews. And Rashi continues, Vazeh vazeh katani, it says Zeh vazeh in the Mishnah, meaning Gabi mitzasiyah tana Zeh omer. By the mitzasiyah case, it says the phrase of Zeh omer. V'gabi kula shali katani Zeh omer. By kula shali, it also says Zeh omer. V'chadahu, and if it's all one case, hachi boile lemisni, it should have said as follows: Zeh omer mitzasiyah v'kula shali. The fact that it divided it up with two Zeh omers, that implies that it's two cases. And so the Gemara says, B'mekach u'memkar, the second case is talking about a purchase, meaning kanasiya miad ploni, meaning they're arguing, each one saying, I bought it from so and so. V'davka now Rashi notes it's only by a sale, if they're arguing who bought it from the seller, that we say yachloka b'shvur, that we say that divide it with an oath. Because it is possible that both of them bought it. That's at least a possibility. It could be that the seller wanted to give it to both of them. But Rashi points out, let's say one of them would say I wove the garment, and the other one says no, I wove the garment. So they're lo yachloka. There they certainly would not divide it. Because there's certainly one of them is a Ramai, one of them is lying, and in such a case, as Rashi, in such a case, the item would be placed aside until Eliyahu Navi comes and clarifies who is the correct owner, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Beis Amud Beis.